Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
Chris, thanks so much for coming on. I do have a new question for you today, so I'm excited for that, and you have to bear with me because it's going to be one that it's going to be a bit redundant, but I think you're the man to speak with about this because you have a plethora of things that you have done. You successful business, father, husband, like these are things that people aspire to do. And then especially with all of the chaos of the world, people lose focus. They cannot figure out what they need to be doing in their life. And you help people realize that not only through your motivational speaking, but from your, your business savvy work. But, without me kind of going in and around what you have been doing, tell the world who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, first, thank you, Michael, for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a real honor to be here with you. Well, I mean, there's always two sides of every individual, right? There's the personal and there's the professional side of myself. Like a lot of people, I, started my professional career after I got out of college. I married my high school sweetheart when I was, we were dating when we were 15, dated all through college, graduated college, went into the corporate world. I've worked for, larger institutions, but my starting point when I started my life in the world of business started by actually selling Yellow Page ads. I was a door-to-door Yellow Page salesman. Now, probably some people listening to this don't even know what that is. But back in the day when you didn't have internet and you didn't have everything, you had to go, door to door and get people to advertise in a book. So I learned very quickly how to interact with individuals, how to talk and communicate and learn about their stories and become engrossed in the world of sales. And so that kind of led me through a journey of, into different organizations. I've worked for Hewlett Packard, EDS. I've worked in IT most of my career, if not all of it. And I started my business back in 2008. I became an entrepreneur. I took the knowledge that I had in the technology field and I engrossed myself into that. Now, there was a lot of fear that went into that, as there is anything in our lives when we make a monumental shift in our life. Certainly it was for me because at the time, I actually got fired. So, when you get fired and laid off, it's a bad situation, and 3 kids and a house and wife, you have to work quickly. So for me, I learned very quickly that I had to overcome that fear, get out there and believe in myself. And so that's my journey has been built upon being an entrepreneur and driving sales. So I am the CEO of Blue Chip Solutions. It's an IT consulting solutions company. I'm based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are a national firm. I also sit on the board of directors for Coeptis Therapeutics. It's a biotech company, public biotech company, where we focus on cancer research, really trying to identify areas that where cancers have not been discovered using what we call SnapCart therapy, T-cell therapies. It's very cutting edge type of things. That's a real passion, and I'm very much involved in that. I also am the director of the Christopher Cochran Legacy Fund, which is really at the heart of who I am, where I spend a lot of my energy. And that is something that was put in place after my son passed away of cancer 3 years ago. And it was really not because of me, because he directed me to do that. Months before he passed, he knew he was going to go. And he said, listen, Dad, I think it'd be great if we could set something up to help others who are less fortunate, who need help. And so I put a lot of effort into that today.
I was reading a book from Les Brown. I'm not sure if you know him. He's a motivational speaker.
I've heard of him, yes.
And he talks about his story, his adversity, how he got fired from his job and how he had to take care of his kids. And there was a lot of ups and downs in life. And that happens to us all. There's always going to be ups and downs. And it's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on today, because we get so stuck in our story sometimes where we're like, this is a problem for me. And one of the things in the book, it says, if you have a problem that can be solved by man or by money, you don't have a problem. And it's so powerful because many people, they think these problems of not being able to pay their bills, or they get fired and they have to figure out what to do. Yes, we understand it's a concern that we have to rise to and we have to address, but it's truly not a problem. Where your situation, for example, if your son, like that right there is life changing. And many people, they kind of have it so good, they don't realize what they have until it's gone sometimes, or when they're presented with an issue. And I wanted to, touch base with you on how do you do it? Like, how do you get through the hard times? Is there a certain type of mindset that you give yourself, or you had to give yourself, or was there a belief that you hugged, or you, leaned into when you were going through those hard moments, or was it something that you just had to deal with, and you just rose to the occasion all of a sudden?
It's a great and deep question. I'm a faithful person. I believe in God. I put a lot of my faith in God. You are right. In a world where we use the term keeping up with the Joneses, right? That is a constant drag on everyone in many ways. The shift for me, everybody goes, the universal thing that we all deal with is grief, right? It's grandparents, parents, siblings, a mind shift, losing a job, divorces that happen. But yes, I always think of myself pre-cancer and after cancer. The guy I was before is a different guy today. That's a different person. And I've been through difficult things, but nothing like this, right? Losing a child is very difficult for anyone, and it sticks to you. It never goes away. It's just a part of who you are. And everything else kind of flows away. The two things that I always tell people, they'll ask me is, and similar to your question, which is, one is, I'm very humble. I'm humbled by God, first and foremost, and not deserving of his love. So number two, very important when you make the shift, you're not in control. You're not in control of your circumstances. You may think that you're in control, and I always thought I was in control, but the truth is that you're not. And people, what they do in a world governed by relentless ticking of a clock, I really do believe it's essential to measure our lives not just by days or years, but by the moments filled with joy, acts of kindness, and really the pursuit of that meaning. So I think for me, that mind shift, it obviously occurred. Christian received terminal cancer, right? 22 years of age. It's the worst circumstance you could have for him. He was just graduated college. He was an honors kid. He was top of his class. He was just an amazing individual. And here he goes and gets hit with something that is just terminal. And it affects, of course, Christian most of all, but the family around him. And how do you deal with that? Well, again, I think you have to be a tight-knit family. Sometimes these things statistically can drive families apart. But we found faith, and we found faith in one another. We found strength in Christian, most importantly. And that's really what I talk about a lot in the book is it's a journey. It's a love story. And it's a story of resilience, a story of passion and overcoming all the odds and coming out on the other side. Because I can tell you there's a lot of dark days and there's a lot of people who listen to you who have those moments. But I assure you that if you can relinquish some of that control, you can find yourself on the other side really doing amazing things.
Mm-hmm. And before we get too far, can you throw the name of your book and where people can find it real quick before we get lost?
Sure thing. So it's called What's Good About Today, A Purpose-Driven Life. And you can find it. It's on global distribution right now. It's on pre-order. It comes out August 22nd. So we've had a tremendous outpouring of support and love. I'm overwhelmed, I think, sometimes with everyone who comes to me, and it's just been amazing. The story, the name of the book, What's Good About Today, came from Christian, because when Christian was diagnosed with cancer, and as parents, you can imagine, we were devastated. And we said to Christian, we're so sorry that you have this disease. And Christian said, it's okay. I wouldn't want this on anyone else. It's my burden to take. And Christian would remind us through the course of his year with us when we were sad and upset. He would say, what's good about today? He would question it. He want us to question it. And it's a question that you can always look for the good, the beauty, the essence of everything in life in the day. Because there is always something beautiful about the day. There always is. And no matter what, we had many difficult days, very difficult days, but you can still find beauty. And that was, so that's how you can find the book. And I hope people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And we're going to throw that in the description box so you don't have to worry about any links or anything. One of the questions I wanted to ask that I give a preface for this early on was, it's going to be a new question and it's going to be a bit redundant, but there is going to be a rule to this question that we can't use the same answer that we gave already. So it's going to go by day, week, month, and then year. So how to have a good day, how to have a good week, how to have a good month, how to have a good year. And then when that is all done, the final question is how to have a good life. So, I'm just going to give it to you. You can answer any way you want, but you can't repeat what is every day, because it makes sense. Like every day, live in the moment.
Every day. So it's day, month, and year, correct?
Day, week, month, year, life.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I think routines are important. At least they are in my life. I have a routine. So daily I am up. I pray for the world. I pray for the shield of God around everyone, myself, that I fulfill these things. For the week, I do what's called and I hope I'm answering your question right, because
you're on track.
Okay. I create instead of a to-do list, and again, learn from my son, I don't create to-do lists. I create to-love list. So those are things that I need to do in the week that are filled with love. And I try to demonstrate that through optimism and humility and kindness and giving to others. Monthly, well, that I use for, I would say is more deep meditation. I use yoga. I use things that take me to a place that gives me some peace and calm and helps me to get centered as a human being, helps me to recognize. So I do that. That's probably once a month. I probably should do it more, candidly. My wife gets on me. She's a yoga teacher, so I should. But I really try to do that once a month. Life. Wow, that's the biggest one, right? Like, what's the whole for the eternity of life? Well, it's trying to lead and this again, it sounds very it sounds very redundant, but it is truly what I focus on at the end of the year. I do keep notes. I'm a journal freak. That's how I've written this book, is I write daily a journal. And I talk about this in the book, right? This is actually one of those practical things you can use at the end of the year. I take all those journal notes, and I suggest people do that. Take all those notes, put them down at the end of the year, go back, review those notes, and look at your year, because it's an opportunity to see that you're leading this purposely driven life. And I think for me, that's kind of a standard thing for me that I've put into daily practice. Now, I certainly do the journals every day, and you could say I do it every month, but I review these things at the end of the year, and I go back and I say, oh, wow, I did that. And I focus on the positive. There's plenty of negative in the world, like you said, tons of it, too much of it. And so I focus on the good. I focus on the things that I've done right. I focus on giving myself some credit, right? Some self-love, and say, hey, these are the things I did right. And I take that into the next year. And so then I start that process again. And so for me, that's how I lead my life and how I lead a purposely driven life. Try to.
Powerful.
Try to.
Yeah, no, it's powerful, because when I was looking at those questions myself, I was like, you always get stuck. It feels like you get stuck somewhere when you're thinking about day to day, especially if you're in survival, because there's many people who are struggling. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay their rent or their mortgage, or, buy groceries for their kids or whatever it be, right? They're just in a bad spot. Maybe they're stressed, anxious. The economy might not be good for them, or, their financial situation might not be good for them. So they self-sabotage. They just do the things that are not beneficial for themselves. And, if they get fired, for example, it's like, like a, boo-hoo time. It's like, oh, I got to cry. And I understand
Right.
I understand that, you can be human and go through emotions and things like that. But at some point you have to say, I'm going to get back up. You got knocked down, but I'm going to get back up.
Yeah.
But people, they stay down sometimes. What do you say to the people who stay down more than they get back up?
Wow, that's a hard one, because I'm not going to lie.
Mhm.
I mean, I always believe in being authentic, and I've been knocked down, and it's losing my son has torn me apart, right?
Mhm.
So I have been in those places where it's very dark, very dark, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I'd stay in bed all day. Now I'm running companies, I have employees, I have things, and I realized that there is a purpose for everything. I realize that there's a purpose to suffering. There is a purpose to pain. Now, those are two different things, right? Pain and suffering are very different. I've witnessed both. But I actually am a true believer that suffering is a way to get us closer to God. I believe it is a way that brings us in closer. And there's those who listen who've lost their jobs, who are down and out and can't get out of bed, who can't do the things. I always say one step at a time. Back then when I lost my son, it was like one step at a time. I said, what am I going to do today? I only focus on today. Today, I'm going to make today a great day. And to be honest, I really do a lot of that even now. I don't think too far ahead. I don't look behind, because those are things that can pull you back and put you back into a position where you don't want to get out of bed, and you don't want to go look for that next job, and you don't want to face the realities that are hitting you. And there are so many people struggling in this world. There's so many people who, like you said, are facing difficult times through loss, jobs, people, and it can feel overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. But I tell you, you have to push. It's easy to say to push through. But I think if you listen to more people, connect with more people, I do that a lot. I think that's probably my saving grace, connecting the dots. You will find that we are all so connected with one another, and you can listen to stories. And as bad as my story is, and it's tough, boy, there are a lot worse stories than mine. Because you can say, well, you lost your kid. That's the worst thing. It is. But I've heard stories that people come to me and they're the worst, horrible things. And I go, it's all about perspective, right? It's about perspective. And so if you lose perspective, yeah, you can pull yourself into a downturn. And I think once you realize your perspective of where you're at, you can pull yourself out of those things.
Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely human also. I've been in those moments when I stayed in bed and, life was just not good, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to live, not live, but like I didn't want to go out and do what I'm supposed to do. I just want to stay in bed, not eat. And I suffered because of it.
Yeah.
Not only, physically, but mentally. It's like this hurdle I'm giving myself I'm just like every single day felt like I was digging a hole. I kept digging a hole. This is like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, like, what do I do? And it was a day at a time. It was, reading books, seeking mentors, getting coaching. All of those things helped me get out, start to build that ladder to get out of the hole that I was, digging for myself, because I was in a good place. Then all of a sudden, the world has other plans for you. And you're like, well, guess what? Now you have to adjust. You have to pivot. And they say adversity leads a man to abundance. And it's very true, because if I look at my life, for example, I don't grow significantly when I have all my successes. Everything is good. Everyone loves me. It's like when things are not going good, when things are going bad, when I, have a result that I'm not precisely looking for, a failure, if you want to call it that. That's when I grow. But yet many people, they shy away from these moments that are going to build them up. It's like going to the gym. Like you can lift a 2-pound dumbbell all day, right? You can like, yeah, this is easy. And you might see some growth. But the reality is you have to do the hard stuff, like the 10 pounds and then the 15, then 20, getting all the way up to 50 pounds. And then you become stronger because of it. Yet we try to avoid that big picture weight, like of, 50 pounds, whatever it be, and we say, I'm going to stay where I'm comfortable. What is the danger of someone staying in their comfort zone when they're trying to grow and change their life?
It is debilitating. I think you can, if you're not trying to figure out how to be better at something, it is really difficult to get to the next step, right? And first of all, I'm sorry for your suffering that you went through. But again, I guess it's one of those universal things that we all go through. So you're one of everyone else that we go through this. I think you have to, as you said, push yourself. I think it's funny when you go, not funny, it's far from funny, but you go through these things and the little trivial things in your life that people think are big, and I'm sure they are big to people, right? They're not that big. I would trade places with a lot of people who have what I call little problems, life problems. We all have them, right? We all get them. And you have to, not let it put you down or debilitate you enough that it gets you to a point where it's continuous. I won't lie to you, Michael, when you thought about killing yourself, there's nothing, I've thought that too. So it's not it's a very human thing to think, right? When you're down and you're in the dumps, now, would I actually do it? No, of course not. I love life too much. Would never do that. But has it crossed my mind that I'm so bummed and depressed? What's the existence? Why am I here? Questioning everything? Yeah, I have. But I snap myself back into it. There's that little voice, it's my son who's always telling me, no, listen, don't cry. Things are going to be fine. I talk about that in the book. How many of your listeners believe in what's next after this life? But I do believe in that stuff, and I've seen it. So I think it's important that we realize we're all on a journey. It's a very short journey. And I even talk about that in the book. My son lived for 8,508 days. And that's the name of the chapter. So when you break down life in a matter of days, it's not a lot. And so you really have to take those days for what they're giving you and make the most of it, which is like after this call, I'm going out with my son to watch go to a soccer match, this big soccer match here in town. So I'm going out. I'm living life. I have to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important that we don't forget to continually live, even after the rough moments. And, a bit of clarification, in 2016, I had lost my great grandmother. And, she's like a mom to me. Basically, right. My mom, she was sort of a single mom, but she wasn't, because my dad was a bad boy. He was in and out of the picture in jail and stuff like that. So, he finally, grew up and he was a part of our family and our life. But in the beginning, it was like my mom worked 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet for my brother, my sister, and myself. And then she basically relied on her grandmother to care for us during the day. So we would go to school. After school, we would go to her house. She would go to work. And then we would either sleep over there or she'll come pick us up after work. And then we would go to school. So it was kind of like we were all over between 2 and 3 houses. Mm-hmm. And, when she had passed away, and, I lost a part of me. It was like, what do I do? And it wasn't so much that I wanted to end my life, but it was more of, I don't know if you're familiar of how like wolves and dogs act when they know they're going to pass away. They kind of go somewhere by themselves. They just kind of go by a tree. They go under a bed. If you have if you have a house dog, they go away to be alone. And that's what it felt like, where I just wanted to be alone. But I knew I was slowly dying because I wasn't seeking community. And I know one of the things churches do really well. I have a client that I go to church with on Sundays, and the community that is there is so powerful because they all support each other. And I'm not even talking about you have to be spiritual or religious to have a community of people that you can rely on. It's more so of how we have become so independent. In our way of thinking, we've become chambers. We have become silos. We have become these people who think that we're these lone warriors. But the reality is we are community. We work better together, where now if I can lean on somebody, please let me lean on you. It's not about me being so strong and independent. It's about me being interdependent and woven into the culture, into, my fellow brothers and sisters, for me to grow and prosper. It's not me fighting the world by myself anymore. So many people feel like they are fighting a battle by themselves. How can people start to immerse themselves into community, or find a community that will help them thrive?
Well, you just said it, right? I think that, you said it all right there. I go to church every week and sometimes more. That is a safe place, right? It's a place where, I don't subscribe to, I'm in a religious church, of course, but, I talk a lot about spiritualness and how all religions are interconnected with one another, and they're all one and the same sometimes because you can share different things. But I think you're right. I mean, that's a place I go to talk to the community who embrace me. I can feel at ease. My shoulders can, be let down. I don't have to be something I'm not. I can be, humble. I'm humble amongst other people. I'm humble in front of God. And I think you get you can do so much when you give so much to other people too. I'm sure you find this. Like, I love it when I can lean on people. But I love when people lean on me. The truth is, I probably get more from it than myself. It's probably part of my cathartic process, which is when I feel like I'm helping those who are in need, those who are down and out, those who are struggling. You talk about that because one of the things we do for the foundation here, I live in the city of Pittsburgh. And so we do a lot of work with the Propel Schools of Pittsburgh. It's a charter school, inner city kids. We support and fund after school programs for these kids. These kids come from nothing. They walk. They don't have a dad. Sometimes don't have a mom. The parents are absent. These are the most beautiful kids I've ever seen, ever. And I think when you put a lot of love into other people, it's amazing how much of that just comes back to you in return, right? I feel it. I feel it in my heart. I'm sure you do too. And when you lost your great-grandmother, was it your great-grandmother that you lost?
Yes.
And she was so close to you. I'm sure you felt a piece of your heart just be ripped out. It feels so tight. And I think the way to replace some of those pieces is to do good things by others and help those who are in less need. At least for me, I do lean on people, and I do let my full self come out. I feel like I'm letting myself full self come out with you. And I think it's the only way to do it and be authentic. But I think you have to also be able to take a lot of suffering of others on sometimes. I think, again, you have your own suffering, but there are things that I've written that talk about, the more suffering you take on, the closer we become to God, right? And it is a measure of where we're headed. And so I do believe suffering is just a part of it. And you have to be willing to do that.
When it comes to the suffering aspect, it's inevitable. Like, we are going to go through hard moments. As long as you're alive, they're going to be there when you least suspect it, maybe even, because we can get into a good spot, the spot that we might think that we're going to be thriving in. Think of it as your dream life. You say that you want this life, and you say you want this big house, you want these cars, you want maybe a certain amount of clothes, money, materialistic things. And then you realize at some point, like, these things don't truly make you happy. I heard a quote the other day. They say success is needing nothing and having everything. And I said, that's so powerful, because we are living the opposite of success today. Success can be derived from your own perspective, but if we think about what truly is success, they want financial freedom. They want to, not have to worry about things, needing nothing, but yet having everything. And if you ask a lot of people that are past their prime, right? So they're past their 30s and 40s, they're 65 plus, and they say the most important thing is family. Yet, if we look at our world today, especially in the younger generation, they wait a lot longer to have children. you married your high school sweetheart. People don't even think about their high school sweethearts anymore.
Yeah, you're probably right.
We are far from where we were. Do you think that the way our world is going right now, that at some point we're going to have to kind of go backtrack a little bit to hit that community aspect? I don't know if you know about this, but Gen Z is actually the largest generation that is stepping towards spirituality. And by spirituality, I mean all like types of religions and things like that, like believing in higher power, because they feel so disconnected. Isn't that amazing?
That is, it's wonderful to hear, though, right? I mean, to hear people are connecting more with their spirituality and understanding that there's a higher purpose to everything. I hope you're right. People are going back. I have seen it. I feel blessed that I've witnessed some of these things, younger individuals who are connecting with God in all kinds of ways. I think people are looking for answers. Do you know, when it comes, when it comes to God, I mean, look, I'm 55 years old, and I think back when I was a kid, and I was a Christian, and I went to church with my family. My mom was a good Christian, and she taught me good things and how to be a good person. And I'm certainly am not a perfect person. I've failed many times, but I think that we're all seeking what comes next, and for your listeners to let them know that I have experienced that. I talk about that. A week after my son had passed away, that and it's in the book that talks about how I was taken somewhere in the middle of the night. It wasn't a dream. I know dreams. It was extremely vivid. One of the things I asked Christian before he passed away, I said, Christian, please come back and see me. I have to know you're okay. He says, Dad, I promise. And this is a kid who kept his promises. And I said, great, Christian, I'll wait. And he did. He came to me in this very vivid opportunity. I feel I was transported somewhere. We certainly hugged. We did talk, not with our mouths. I can't explain it. I smelled him, hugged him. It seemed like I was in his apartment, in a new apartment. It was old. He loved the 70s, so it seems reflective of what he would have loved. There were other people there, all shadowy figures moving around as if I was invited to some sort of dinner party. But he told me in my ears, I hugged him. He said, Dad, tell Mom. He specifically wanted me to tell his mother, tell Mom that I'm okay and everything is going to be all right. You guys need to move on. And it was very clear as day. And when I came out of that, I was just blown away. And I knew I had been somewhere that it's like Christian got a special permission slip from somebody to allow me that very rare moment to go somewhere. And I did. And there's no doubt in my mind about that. So I think everybody's seeking what's next. And I assure you, there is definitely something that is next that is beautiful, because I've been assured of that. I've been so assured of it. And there's countless stories of this everywhere. Anyone can find these stories of people that have gone and come back, right? I've gone and I'm alive, and I've seen it. So I hope people get back to your original question, which is I hope more younger people continue to seek answers and to seek that spiritual element of their being.
They say that communication is only made up about 7% of speaking. Like, me and you, this is only 7% of what communication is. And then they say around 30 to 40%, depending on the person, is tonality. And then the rest is going to be, of course, a mix of things. So it could be body posture, like we can go down the line. But it's interesting how many people are thinking like a conversation, right? Just talking. And as you said, like in that, meeting with Christian, like you didn't talk, and it's okay. You didn't talk. It's only 70%, right? Like everything else made up for it. You didn't have to say anything. And sometimes like you can be around the people you love and you don't have to say anything. And you could just be there with them, and you can feel it. When someone has your back and someone doesn't have your back. And I know some people have a hard time figuring out like toxic people in their life. And, that's something that you would have to work through and maybe get some coaching and, speak with someone about, so you can see if they're for you or they're not for you. But you can truly tell if you pay attention. And our conversation was more of, are we paying attention to all the different things in our day, in our life, because we can get distracted so easily. And, I love having guests on like you, Christopher, talk about your story, but then, also, that you're present, you're writing books, you're helping people, and you want to see the world be a better place. And that's literally our mission here. Like, can we make the world a better place? A podcast episode at a time, a client at a time, a seminar at a time. It doesn't matter how we do it, but can we make that ripple effect? And I think you're doing great work. As we begin to wrap up, of course, I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you. Of course, plug your book again. Don't worry, it's going to be in the show notes. But, I do want to, get this out there for people to see, because, humility is so big. And for a person to be real and be vulnerable, it's missing in our world today. And I think we are stepping in the right direction. It's just sometimes we need a little bit of guidance. We need someone to say, hey, I have done it before, and I know you can do it too. So, with that, take it over.
All right. Well, I want to touch on something you said about being there for people, because I think that is key. Sometimes when you go through difficult moments, you realize those that are most important to you show up, right? It's amazing. And it's not always family. You know what I mean? It's not always family. It can just come from people you never knew. The most love I've ever gotten are people that don't even know me. And so I think what I tell your audience, it's so important, be there for people, because they're like, well, what do I do? I don't know what to do. You don't need to do it. Listen, it's not complicated. It's really pretty easy. Just be there. You don't have to talk, like you said. You don't have to say anything. Just the presence is enough for someone to know you care about them, that you care enough about their life. And so I appreciate you saying that, because that triggered something to me. So people can pick up the book. Again, it's on global distribution. You can pick it on Amazon.com. Of course, it's on Barnes and Noble. It's in Barnes and Noble. It's on many major outlets online. Again, What's Good About Today, a purpose-driven life. And it's inspired by my son, Christian Cochran. And you can find more about Christian at christiancochran.org, which is about the foundation, talks about Christian, what we're doing in the community. I think probably the most important thing is, if anything, just learn and see how we're helping those who are in challenges. And then my website is chriscochranspeaks.com. It's just where I'm engaged in opportunities to speak to people, more about the messaging, and hopefully make an impact in this world. Like you said, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, and 1 year at a time. Hopefully, so we're only guaranteed today. So or really just this moment we have together.
Yeah, we have to make this moment count. We have to understand that we can make a difference. Of course, share the episode, use the things that you have learned in this episode, apply it to your life immediately. Don't say you'll do it later, say you'll do it now. Like we can say that we'll do it tomorrow, but why wait till tomorrow when we can do it today? There's so many things that happen that can distract us, but we have to remain in focus so we can also make an impact. So thank you, Chris, for coming on. We had a great conversation today.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.